Welcome to Holly's Pandorium, featuring your host, psychic medium Holly Jordan.
Hey everybody, we're back. This is Holly, and this is Holly's Pandorium, and I'm happy to introduce you to Sage. Sage is someone that I met, I think, a year ago, maybe 2 years ago, at an event, and we had a bit of a connection there, and I just enjoyed speaking with her so much, and I've been wanting to interview her for a while now. Sage is a psychic medium, and she makes custom teas, among other things, and I'm just excited to hear her stories. I have not heard a bunch of her stories, so I'm looking forward to this. Hello, Sage. How are you today?
Hi, I'm doing great. How are you?
Great. Great. It's awesome. I'm looking forward to the cooler weather. I'm in Washington State, and I believe you're in Oregon, yes?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, it's
It's
finally starting
just
to get a little bit cooler. Yay. So,
yeah,
I'm ready for that. So, if you wouldn't mind, can you share one of your stories that you have to do with the paranormal today?
definitely. I think one of my most impactful ones happened, I want to say about a year and a half ago, like right before I met you, actually. I went in for a tattoo with a new artist that I've never went to before, or even really talked to before. And as I'm getting the tattoo, we're just starting to talk about tarot, talk about different psychic stuff, whatever just came up. And they were at a shop where they shared the space with everybody. And in the corner, there was this little radio. And the night before, I had done like a meditation because something told me I needed to kind of tap in. And there was somebody, like a spirit that came and talked to me, and I can't remember the name, so I'm gonna just use the initial L for
Okay.
um, the spirit, and Al came to me and told me about how they had passed away, of an overdose, and I, at the time, was also working as a substance use disorder counselor, so this is also a frequent occurrence. I get quite a bit of spirits who have, um, passed away due to either substance use or mental health, and they kind of talked to me about, um, one of their partners from when they were living, but I didn't really know who this was or why they were coming to me. So back to the tattoo, this radio, it wasn't the tattoo artist. It was nobody's in the shop. It had been left there for quite a long time, since before most of the people in the shop were actually there. And it started turning on, which was very bizarre. No one even knew it worked. And it started counting. Um, I'm assuming it was about like deaths from the pandemic specifically, but it gave like a very large number, like somewhere in the thousands, and was like 10,000 deaths have occurred and then cut off with like radio silence right after. So we looked at each other and I was like, that was weird. And they're like, I've never had that happen. I was like, honestly, those things happen quite a bit. Also, um, I'm getting this person come back, L, and I explained to them, I'm like, I usually don't do this. So I wanted to ask them for consent because I didn't know if this was specifically related to this person or somebody they knew.
Right.
And they were like, yes, I give you the consent. And I talked to them. I was like, there is this person. I'm going to use a different name just in case because it's a sensitive
No,
topic.
that's fair.
So I'm going to use the name K. And I was like, do you know somebody with the name K? And I'm like, it's not spelled as a typical name. So, for example, which is not Kyle, it's not spelled with a Kyle, it's spelled differently. And I described how this person looks because it's a very like common name. And they're like, yeah, I know a lot of people like that, but when you describe them, I know a lot. Like that is my one of my very close friends. I was like, interesting. Do they know somebody with the name L? And their like jaw dropped. They had to stop tattooing for a little bit. And they're like, yes. I was like, did Al pass away of an overdose? And they said yes. They're not quite sure if it was intentional or unintentional.
Mhm.
They were really struggling before they passed away. And there is some assumption with the close friend group that it was intentional. However, it was ruled unintentional.
Gotcha.
Um, this was their long-term partner, and Kay's long-term partner was Al, and they had discussed quite frequently having thoughts of suicide, mental health, substance use, and were both really struggling. So when Al passed away, Kay definitely went more and more into depression. And I had more insight that I gave them about the situation.
Mhm.
Didn't want to straight up be like, this is an emergency. I wanted to make sure that they were able to navigate this conversation with more of a level head so that it actually has a higher likelihood of being supportive rather than like more intensity and overwhelm.
Right.
And I said, I would really encourage you to reach out to Kay as soon as we're done. As soon as you get home, even just so you have some more private space. They're like, are you sure? I said, yes, I would do so immediately. I do think something is going on, and I just want to make sure everybody's safe.
Right.
And when we ended the tattoo, I actually gave them a reading, a tarot reading as well.
Mhm.
Tattoo was in honor of my grandma who had passed away, who actually sparked my own sobriety and going towards recovery. And it's a little ghost. It has little ivies and some dead roses with it. And after the tarot reading, we started seeing like a murder of crows almost immediately. I had told them, hey, I don't see you in the shop for very long. There's going to be some form of a mentor stepping in, and you're going to transition into your own space within about 3 months. And then their partner comes and picks them up, and their partners gave them, they didn't know about the tattoo, 2 dozen dead roses because that was something that they collected.
Okay.
And so they gave me one because they were like, this is actually one of these, I'm sure, is meant for you.
Oh, nice.
They drove away. They called their friend and they gave me an update later that night. And they're like, thank you so much. They
Oh,
were making
nice.
preparations and had plans to die by suicide in the next
Oh,
48 hours. And
wow.
um, about a couple months, even a couple years, I'll like randomly check in just to make sure everything's still okay.
Yeah.
I did form a friendship with this tattoo artist.
Nice.
And when I feel that maybe they're struggling or any of my friends are struggling, I'll get this like overwhelming feeling of I need to call this person immediately. And I never call this friend, this tattoo artist, but out of the blue I did. And because I had this feeling and I called them and I'm like, hey, what's going on? And they're in the middle of tattooing the person, Kay, from the first time. And they're like,
Right.
ironically, they're there. And I said, okay, well, you both need to be safe then.
Yeah.
um, and they are doing extremely well now. Um, and that's definitely one of the most impactful ones for me,
Wow.
especially because at the time I was really doubting, like, is this just something in my head or is this like something that's actually happening? I've had it
Mhm.
happen a few other times with one of my previous friends who had a brother who passed away as well. And I just did it over the phone with them. And this was my very first one that I've ever done a mediumship reading for, back in like 2020. But I've always kind of had a lot of that experience of, I know this is going to happen. I saw this in a dream. This is going to happen, but it's going to be a little bit different. Or um, let's try to prevent this from happening. For example, I told my friend when I was about 14 years old, I was like, hey, I know you wanted to go to the mall today. Don't go to the mall today. Because I knew the shops that they were going to, and that we were all going to go, and I ended up not being able to. And something had happened that kind of forced them into listening to me, because they were kind of like, yeah, whatever. There ended up being a shooting in that mall at the
Oh,
same
wow.
store that they were going to go into around the same time we were actually going to be there. And since then I was like, okay, no, this is real. I just have to kind of figure out how to navigate that a lot better so I can not scare people as much.
Right.
Especially now, kind of stepping into more of a clinical role and still working in the social services field, it does become a lot more difficult in terms of like, let's remain ethical and within my scope of practice. But also, if something does come up that I'm aware of, I can use that information within an intervention and my ethical guidelines to really support the people in staying safe, and meeting their goals along the way as well.
Yeah, and that's a tightrope to walk. I worked, I'm not going to say in what, but for the state of Oregon for many years, and I was exposed to the most challenged part of 3% of the population, I will put it that way. And so there were many incidences where I had a vibe, I had a thought, I had an image, things would come through, and it's like, you're very limited. There's not a lot you can do to help, but when you can, it's amazing, because otherwise you would have no earthly way of knowing these things that we find out. There's really no great explanation for it, but I'm glad that you're talking about it the way you are, Sage, because every psychic I know and every medium I know has self-doubt. You know, it's interesting to me when the public sees us as confident, and it's like, no, we're not. We struggle just like you do. We have the same self-doubt. We have the same worries. We can't explain what's happening exactly. We just know that it is. And after so many times over and over and over again, when things come to pass, you got to quit denying it, and you got to just let it roll, because you don't know whose life you might save or whose life you might impact in a positive way. It can be small things and it can be huge things. We really never know. And so the fact that we're getting to be a link to help people in any way, in the supernatural way, is incredible. I mean, that, just say it. I mean, it's amazing. It's a miracle. The paranormal is incredible. And when you can help somebody, that's a wow, kudos to you to be able to do it. And I commend you in your field of work to be able to balance that, because it's dangerous. It's really dangerous. You have to be extremely cautious about being professional and not crossing that line. So kudos to you. That's not easy to do that, because you can't stop how you feel. You can't stop your visions. They're going to come at you whether you're ready for them or not.
Exactly, exactly. And
Yeah.
I think it's definitely part of the reason I went into this field as well. Not just because like I have a lot of knowledge and experience with like navigating systems, but also I can see the gaps and I can see how the interconnections between like mental health, regular like physical health, all of the different holistic aspects of it can be supported by spirituality or
Right.
harmed by it as well. And so, kind of navigating that and supporting those that I work with, um, not necessarily by telling them what I'm aware of, but also kind of helping them go towards that direction in the same ways I would have without having this insight has
Right.
actually, I think, strengthened my ability to really build that rapport with people,
Yeah.
and support them on their way as well.
Yeah. And I love that you're able to do that. I was a hairdresser briefly many years ago, and it was incredible. I especially when I had somebody in my chair that was going through something physically that was really tasking, people with cancer or just traumatic health issues, and man, when you can tap in and help somebody feel better even for a moment, that is a huge gift, and sometimes that's all somebody needs. They just need someone to be nice to them for a minute and encourage them to move forward in a positive way. We all need encouragement, so I think it's a blessing that you're doing what you're doing in your field. It's incredible. It really is. So have going forward since I've seen you last, so can you share some of the things that you've been experiencing since that time and some other events that have come across your way?
Definitely. I want to say last September, I went on a trip with some friends and also some coworkers up to Colfax, Washington.
Mm,
And we ended up going to one of the hospitals. I can't remember what it's called. Um, but it is shut down except for tours. And a lot of people go and do tours for paranormal investigations.
okay.
Um, and the whole time for about a year, because I kind of knew ahead of time that we were going to go, I was like, something's going to happen. They're going to warn me. I don't know if they want me specifically there. Especially because like I know the deep rooted like history of racism and all of these other oppressions that do happen across the United States, but especially still sometimes. And so we get there at the hospital. We go in, we set everything up, and I randomly, out of all of the hospital, I see one statue of the Virgin Mary, which was interesting because it is a Catholic hospital and there was not a lot there symbolizing different saints. But specifically, that one stood out to me. And something told me, okay, go step outside. We smoked a cigarette, me and my friend, and I looked out past in the other direction into this forest. And my first thought was, oh, that looks really cool. Maybe I should like walk in that direction and kind of see what's going on. And someone, I don't know who, kind of whispered over and over, don't, like, you need to stop. You need to stay right here. And started telling me, like, there was so many houses that burned. And then kept repeating KKK in my ear, which is
Oh,
terrifying
no.
as a Black
Yeah.
person, especially
Yes.
in Eastern Washington and places I don't know.
Right.
So I paused and I looked at my friend, I was like, "Did you hear that, or was that just something for me?" And
Right.
she was like, "I have no idea what you're talking about." So I told her what I was hearing, and I also kind of felt like this, like, energy kind of pulling me back towards the
Mhm.
hospital,
Yeah.
but at the same time, a different energy trying to push me out into that area. So that was very interesting, and I looked it up, and I saw all of these articles on the history of it
Right.
and how very close by, I don't know if it's that specific forest or just the town in general, there was one of the biggest rallies there, and
Scary.
I go back inside. I was like, "Hey, did you guys wanna tell me about this?" And
Yeah.
they're like,
Did you
both
forget to mention something? Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh.
exactly, and no one else knew about it except for the woman who owns the hospital, and
Oh,
she was like, "Yeah, we try not to talk much about it, at least in for our business or hospital, because that's not necessarily the point. But a lot of us just don't really talk a lot about the history.
right.
But it was definitely very close by, and she
Mhm.
told us some of the stories of her experiences.
Right.
Um, and that alone was very jarring. Just because like I already kind of know where I am, but also being the only person of color here.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, but of course we like go forward. What am I gonna do? I'm like 7 hours, 6 hours away from where I live. Um, So I'm staying there, we're doing the little investigation. We go up to the third floor, and there's this room called Rosie's room, where she had passed away from influenza. I think it's the Spanish influenza
Okay.
specifically. And it is marked as one of the more haunted rooms, or more active rooms, rather, in that floor at least. And one of them sets up the camera, makes sure it's all good, goes downstairs and said something like, "If you guys want to stay up here, you can. Otherwise, you don't have to." And neither of my friend or I heard exactly what she said. So we looked at each other and we're like, "Did she say to stay here or no?" And so we tried to call on our little walkie-talkies down there, didn't work. They usually work throughout the building, maybe not the fifth floor. It was not working. And my friend started smelling a newborn baby that smelled like they were fed from with formula, just out of nowhere. And she's like, "Come here." I was like, "No, no. I My body says do not go past that point." Um, and so I was like, "Do you wanna try on your walkie-talkie to, like, try to contact them?" And again, it did not work. And so we looked at each other and then it gets silent, but, like, the type of silent where you can hear, like, a low screechy noise.
Mhm.
Um, and I was like, "Okay, well, let's just, like, walk this way." Because if you're showing a spirit or an entity that's not helpful
Right.
in the way, because I can't say if it was negative or positive. It could just be neutral and just trying to have fun and scare people.
Right.
Um, but it definitely felt heavy. Like the air started feeling smoggy, and so I was like, "How about we go this way?" And I gave them a warning before we go in, because you've never done anything like this. I want you to make sure if you're going downstairs or upstairs, you're always holding on to the little handles or whatever is available. Make sure that you're looking where you're stepping, all of this.
Right.
And so she was like, "I wanted to run so bad." And I was like, "You don't want to run in those situations because that's going to potentially increase the activity in possibly a negative way." And with the energy, how it was, it seemed like it was going to be fairly negative. So we get back down to the first floor, and I go and sit with whoever is all there because there's like, I want to say 9 of us, but there was only like 5 of us in the room. And I just sat there and meditated and put like a little bubble because I was like, something is off specifically about tonight. I
Yeah.
don't know what it is. And I put it around everybody. And then
Smart.
the rest of the night, there was almost no activity that we could film at all. Um, there was like maybe a little bit down in the basement. There was kind of like a daycare down there, and they were using the lights to kind of communicate with the spirit there that was located by a walker. And it was pretending to be a child. And all of the questions that everybody else would ask, it would actually respond.
Mhm.
But for any of the questions I would ask, it said no. It like wouldn't answer. And
Mm.
so it started talking about games, like board games. And ironically, earlier that day, we went to a little thrift store on our way there and we just saw a bunch of like Scrabble um, little pieces. And so I said, "Oh, you like Scrabble, don't you? And you also probably really like Monopoly," implying more so because you're profiting off of,
Mhm.
or you did profit off of
Right.
what was going on. And didn't answer me, but when somebody else asked that question, it said yes. And it came by and tried to like push me as I had like confronted it. And I had said, that makes a lot of sense because there was a lot of children down here when that flood happened, and you just let them stay there. And I like was standing, I was like, it's up to my waist and how much. And they weren't able to really get out because it's only really steep stairs and some of them were disabled.
Oh, wow.
And they didn't like that. It started getting really upset. And so everybody decided to go. When we finally left, we went up to like the nuns' quarters. They didn't really say much to us. Um, but we left the building and went to our next location. I got into the car. Mind you, there's no water, it's not raining, nothing. My phone was in my pocket, the same side I said this is how high the water was.
Mhm.
My phone wasn't able to connect to my car or any charger because it said it had water detected in it.
Wow.
So it was definitely,
That's intense.
yes, very intense. And I'm glad I put the protections up because I think with how it was going, there would have been a lot more going on, which granted, why a lot of people do the paranormal investigation, and it might have not been safe.
Right. No, I agree. And investigations are important, but they can be done safely without anyone getting harmed. So your instincts, I believe, are always more important than anything else. Your body is your first instrument, and a friend of mine said that, and I thought, "Oh, why didn't I think of that?" But that's really true. Um, it is. Your body is your first gauge of okay, not okay, move forward, no, stay back. Definitely worth listening to. Definitely.
Yeah.
So, wow. So that was a lot at your first location. What happened at the next one?
The next one, there was a few spirits, but honestly, it just seemed more like a tourist area rather than somewhere you actually want to investigate. There wasn't a lot going on. And if there were some going on, but it was more so just like in passing. Maybe you'll see a spirit out of the side of your eye, but that's about it.
Yeah.
Um, when we got back um, to the motel, which was very, very close by, um, it was also very quiet, and not as quiet as that one room in Rosie's room, but it felt like, okay, well, they're like, we can't get you now. Um, and as soon as we left, because time felt like it stopped when we were in those two places, especially the hospital, we thought we were there for like 4 or 5 hours. We were only there for maybe 2 hours at most.
Wow.
And we actually spent a lot less time than we had initially planned to. So once we started leaving the town, time started actually speeding up a lot
Wow.
more, like on average time as well, which was definitely very bizarre. I haven't experienced that before.
So have you had a chance to go through any recordings from that event with anyone to see anything else that popped up while you guys were doing all that?
No. They did go through it and they were like, honestly, we didn't get anything on camera.
Oh,
Even the
wow.
experience, like when you were up there in that room, there was nothing there.
Yeah. Sometimes
Didn't
that
even see
happens.
us. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So what have you noticed about being a medium? What is some things that you can share about what that's like for you?
Um, I have noticed it is challenging to say the least. I oftentimes, especially with the psychic aspects, will get feelings before somebody passes away or before somebody gets really sick. A lot of what I see in the like happening for either myself or other people tends to be more of like perceived as negative. And then I feel like, okay, is it my responsibility to try to get all of these things so it doesn't happen originally? And I had to realize very quickly, no, it's not. I can only do so much as one person.
Right.
It is definitely complicated a lot of how the grieving process works as well. I've had to kind of learn I need to trust that instinct, even if there's no evidence happening right then and there, and take a step back and start that anticipatory grieving process. Whereas before, I would just kind of either brush it off or I didn't know it was going to happen and I just have to grieve after the fact.
Right.
And those are usually in the situations I know I can't do anything about. Um, it's also kind of made it challenging when it comes to um, my tarot business specifically, because I will give readings to people. Usually, on average, they've definitely started getting longer and more in depth,
Mhm.
about 30 to 60 minutes usually. And I know there's a lot of people who don't necessarily believe that stuff, or if they do, they're like skeptic or worried about that as well. So, kind of learning how I can give the tarot readings in that format with obvious consent, if that were to come up, in a way that's going to be received in a healthy manner on both ends and to the best of my ability. There has been things like I've given readings in the past. I'm like, this is a strong likelihood of this happening. For example, I feel like I'm getting that you're going to be losing your job at some point in this time frame. Your car is also going to get some issues. So if you do, when you do get a new car and a new job, do not get like say a red or a white car because those ones are actually going to be lemons or something's going to happen to it quicker. So invest in a different car. And I'm also seeing three people in your life are really struggling, and I really encourage you to reach out to them. And sometimes I'll only get two of the names. And this is
Mhm.
an actual example. I was like, I only know it's this person and this person, but I can't tell you who the third person is because it's not something I am getting access to. And I think that after finding out who it was, it makes sense because it was a very close family member to them, and it probably would have caused a lot more harm to be able to tell them than to
Yeah.
not, um, especially with everything else that was unraveling from that reading exactly kind of how I had told them was going to happen. And so that does make it complicated, especially if it's somebody you're also friends with or close to, because then they're like, I don't want I don't want to know anything anymore. Which reasonable, but it's also challenging. Um, there's also this aspect of me that constantly tries to not just guess myself, but even if I'm very confident in it, I might even go back and like try to gaslight myself. Because I'm like, that doesn't make any sense. And then it happens, and I'm like, okay, well, maybe I should have trusted myself. And so it's definitely opened up a whole other like journey of how can I trust myself more so than I might have in the past and in different capacities now.
Exactly. And when you're reading for someone else, what I like to do is I basically set a perimeter that um, the universal consciousness will only tell me things that they need to know that are positive. And that if the because I inevitably if there's a warning message that comes through, I trust and know that they're supposed to hear it. And
Mhm.
so then I would share it. But it helps to kind of filter it because otherwise you wind up with this cornucopia of data that it's like their spirit guides are so excited that they have access to directly link that they kind of spaz out a little bit and kind of go overboard with data. And from a listening perspective, it's incredibly overwhelming. It's like people would be content if you could tell them one thing about a job upcoming. When you tell them 10 things and they're kind of going, "Oh."
Yes.
It's kind of crazy. And what they don't realize is you're getting even more than that, but some of it just doesn't come out right. And so I do believe that there's times when we get information that's just for us to be aware of something, because I'm one of those people, and I'm sure you are too. When you connect with people, we love people so much, and there's so much compassion that I think sometimes we might get information that's for us to pray for them, meditate for them, send them energy, send them protection, um, something to help surround them, because life is overwhelming. Life can be so complicated, whether we want it to be or not. We have drama. That's part of life. Drama is part of life. It's not something we can avoid or run away from. It's just there. That's how we learn. We learn when we bruise our knees and fall down on our faces. But it ain't easy. It's not easy. So you're providing an incredible service to people. Absolutely 100%. And definitely, I mean, you're getting stuff that you didn't ask for. I
Yes.
think people forget that. They don't realize we didn't choose this, it chose us. We were going about our lives just like y'all, minding our own business, and then boom, something comes across and it's like, "What in the world? What is this stuff?" And it takes a while. It takes a minute to navigate and sort and figure out what to do next. So I'm really glad about you talking about permission, because I'm a big advocate of that. I don't approach people unless my spirit guides are pretty much hammering my head that I have to. I don't do that. I'd rather people come to me and ask, because I don't ever want to be a part of someone's life story without their consent. It's not part of my life journey. I have no intention to invade or or impose or any. It's like, I got enough of my own stuff. Thanks very much. I don't want yours to. So yeah, no, I get it. I get it. And it does take practice. So are you doing things for yourself to help protect your energy and to help you stay level? And what are those things?
Absolutely. I actively try to invest time every day in cultivating some form of joy for myself, because it's more of like an action. It's not just an emotion at that point. And that kind of takes away some of the excess of all of the downloads and stuff that I get every single day. Sometimes I'll even just ask, I'm like, hey guys, it's enough for right now. I need a break. Give me like a week. And sometimes they listen and sometimes they don't. But if they don't, I have to assume it's because I have to be aware of something to
Right.
keep either myself safe or somebody else safe. I also like put up those mental boundaries as well. One of my favorite ones that I do, not just when I'm like face to face with somebody I'm working with, like a client, or in my professional life, a client, I will have like I imagine a bulletproof glass basically. And it's bulletproof because like anything that's coming to me, whether it's words, energy, something else from the spirit realm or what it happens to be, isn't able to actually negatively impact me or impact me in any way. I'm able to see them, I'm able to hear them, I'm able to get what the gist of everything is, and I don't have to take it on myself,
Right.
which is incredibly helpful, especially because then I can just walk away if I need to.
Yes. Yes.
And that being able to walk away, regardless of whatever situation it is so powerful in general, because there's so many times that people feel like they have to stay in one place or stay in a situation that's not meant for them.
Right.
And that boundary of just walking away is one of the most powerful ones to keep yourself, keep other people, keep whatever your peace is, your safety is yours and sacred. Um, Even if you continue that relationship with that person, you don't have to carry it all with you all the time.
Right. No, and I love how you're wording that, because people feel stuck so often as adults. It's interesting. It takes me back to the playground when you have those limitations where you can only play for so long. You only get recess for so long, and it feels like there's no other option. It's that sensation of concern and panic, and I want to be in this spot at this time, but I don't want it to be like this. And that feeling of, dang, and that feeling of being frozen, and people are not frozen. You can pack a bag and go anytime you want. It's not easy, but it's also not impossible, and it's also not something you can't do. And I appreciate you saying it that way, the way you did, because people need to know they can go. They weren't born into misery. They weren't born to live a life of despair forever. You learned something, you realize that you've acknowledged it. Okay, time to move on. Time to have something else that's better for you. You don't have to go 80 years like this. I think our great grandparents went through a lot of misery without cause. They didn't have to, but there was that social brainwashing that people get. And we still do it today. We still convince ourselves of things that really aren't necessary and aren't real. There are not social norm police that are going to knock on your door and say, sorry, but you haven't had enough time in this tortured relationship. You need to stay another 10 years. Nobody's going to do that. That doesn't happen. You can't, I'm laughing, but it's not funny. It's serious. But I feel for people, because I have felt that way before. I've had situations that I didn't feel I could ever change. I didn't feel strong enough. I didn't feel like there were any options. I felt like that's the best I'm ever going to have. This is the best I'm ever going to be. I can't do better than this. This is all my lot in life. Like opening your lunch pail and going, yep, peanut butter and jelly again. This is where we're at. And there's so much more. Life has got so much more to offer. Definitely. So let's talk a little bit about, other than your readings. Now, if somebody wants to get a reading from you, how do they get a hold of you? What is your contact stuff?
Yeah, so I have one email that is for anything really. It is sagenebula34@gmail.com. So to spell that, it's SAGENEBULA 34@gmail.com. And then I also have an Instagram that anybody can reach out to me at. And that is also through my tarot and tea business, Sage's Specialties. And that is spelled SAGESPECIALTEAS. And you can either DM me or comment, and I can DM you, whatever kind of works for you as well.
That's awesome. So can you talk a little bit about your teas? Let's talk about what those are about, and how that got started.
Yeah, so I want to say in like 2021 or so, I was like, I need a hobby, like a different hobby. And I was really trying to invest more time into my spiritual practice. And so I was like, how can I support other people and support myself through my practice? And I was like, okay, I know a lot about herbalism. I also know a lot about teas, and I enjoy teas. So I started making small batches to try just for myself. And each of the ingredients is also part of a spell. It's an ingredient for a spell as well. All of them are for different purposes, like money or stress release or like bringing a better day, or some of them are even for like glamour magic purposes as well.
Mhm.
And so I started doing that, and I started also gifting them to friends and family members. And eventually I was like, I think these are good enough and I can start selling them. Um, Eventually it started to also go into more of like herbal cigarettes, specifically because I am a really big fan of harm reduction. And I know that if that is something that is supportive of you, or even if you want to use it in a different way, that is okay. So I did more research on smokable herbs and different properties that those would release, and created those as well that have been fairly successful. Um, and I was like, this is a very it's fun because it also gets you out there into the community to really get to meet a lot more people, and also try to connect some of those spiritual gifts with other people as well.
That's awesome. I love that. That's great. That's great. So, you actually have a steady business now where you're doing tarot reading for people and that. So, what was your first time doing that? How did you find your first tarot deck, and how did that journey begin?
Yeah, I know I started learning about tarot in about 5th or 6th grade. I had a friend who really got into tarot, and actually gave me my first tarot reading. And I didn't really understand it much, but it definitely gave me more insight about it. And then I went into middle school and met a friend whose family have been pagan for all of her life. And they started having a pagan community group specifically for femmes and non-binaries as well. And that was one of the group's focuses was, okay, let's teach you how to do tarot readings one day. And then from there, I started practicing and really got even more into it, I want to say around 2018, 2019, and then started actually reading for other people and around 2020, virtually, my roommate, and then 2021 and so forth as well. So it's been quite a long time of like learning and practicing. And I've realized I really like tarot specifically because it gives other people, whoever I'm reading for, like the visualization aspects of it.
Right.
Especially if they're asking for me to tap in, it's so much harder to believe what you are being given if you don't have something to visualize with it that you can understand and is tangible.
Gotcha.
So most of the cards are for them. And I started doing more of like a meditation beforehand where I will also start tapping in and receive more of the messages there. A lot of them are more personal messages. So it's more like, I don't personally know anything about numerology, and I will tell everybody that. But I'm like, these numbers are coming up for you. I don't know anything about numerology, but it might be helpful for you to look up. Or like this color is coming up for you, or this crystal, or whatever that happens to be.
Mhm.
And then we'll go into the whole reading. And oftentimes, whatever I get from the first initial meditation, which is often no longer than 20 seconds, will also come up into the reading as well and kind of intertwine, which is very helpful to create like a full visualization for everybody. Yeah.
That's awesome. I actually found out from my mom that my grandparents were into numerology, which I thought was kind of amazing. I started studying horoscope things and the paranormal when I was very young. I remember going to the library and any book I could find, any book at all that had to do with the paranormal or whatnot. And I had a neighbor that used tarot all the time, but he was kind of scary to me. I don't know why. I got along with his kids great, and they were wonderful people, absolutely wonderful people, but there was something dark about him that made me uncomfortable. So the idea of tarot was kind of spooky for me for a long time. I didn't know what it was. And then I had a tarot card reading and this is so funny. So before pot became legal in Oregon, for people that don't know this, you had to have um, basically a medical card that allowed you to get medical marijuana. And so in Salem, Oregon, where I lived at the time, there was an old moose lodge that had been converted to be a pot lodge. And so I would go there, um, and public awareness 1A, I'm allergic to marijuana, but I can use CBD oil. So I would take several allergy pills and go in with some friends, and we'd just play bingo and do things. And we had this Halloween event, and one of the gals came in and said, um, she wanted to do tarot cards, and she had a really cool outfit on, like an old gypsy. She was darling, and she goes, "Let me do this reading for you." And I said, "All right." It was incredible. It was the most incredible tarot reading I'd had to date, and she hit so many things right on the nose, and I didn't know her that well, but she picked up on stuff about my life that there's absolutely no way she could have known any other way. And so that made me kind of stand up and pay attention to tarot differently and kind of go, I really need to pay attention to this. There's something to this. And because I've done readings myself without tarot for my entire life. And so I found that when I started doing a lot of readings, there are times when I will pull out the tarot decks because I'm exhausted, for lack of a better term, and they help me redirect. They help me focus, and they pin down specifics for people, which I really like. I love it when a deck is so in tune that it says what I'm vibing on. I feel something and then poof, there's the card that goes with it. So I love what you said about it being a visual connection, because it's fun to be able to show somebody, this is what I see for you, and it's right here. Look it on this card and see what it's showing you. I'm excited that you're getting numbers though, because numerology is ancient. It's really old. There's so much to it. I know just a tiny, tiny bit about numerology. And honestly, it's one of those things that I kind of study on and off a little just because my grandparents did. So I'm curious. Um, but numbers go with everything. There's numbers in all that we do. Science is full of numbers, and numbers don't lie. Numbers are very specific. But it's interesting too, like in certain Asian cultures, the number 8 is considered extremely lucky. In other cultures, the number 9 is extremely lucky, or the number 3. And so I think it really depends on what's coming through for a person. But I love that. I mean, that's really cool that you're getting all that other stuff too. So I'm curious, do you ever see auras around people? Do you see colors around people?
Yes. Sometimes I have to actually tap in, whether it's a meditation or just like actually like look at the person and take it in. And sometimes it's just very obvious, like this is your color.
Yeah.
I'm not sure if this goes with that, but I noticed at a very young age, like if somebody tells me their favorite color, I can guess their birthday
Yeah.
within like a few off, like maybe 3 or 4 at
Nice.
most, which has been fairly fun. And I'm not sure if that is because it can correlate to their aura yet, but that's something I'm trying to figure out more about as well.
Yeah. So have you seen the aura computer programs?
I have not.
So there is a lady that I interviewed a couple years ago who lives in your area, and she's a psychic and she does Reiki and some other things. Her name's Shayna Madsen, and she actually has a program and a photography setup and has gone to several of the events. In fact, she goes to the Oregon Ghost Conference with it. And she'll take a picture of people and show them their aura. This camera picks it up. And then there's a whole description that comes with it of what it means and how it's affecting their life. And it's fascinating. The science behind it is absolutely incredible. You might want to check it out. But it's very fun. It's super fun. I just love it. If somebody's interested in, let me go back to your teas for a second. If somebody's interested in getting your teas, how would they do that?
So right now it's on a brief pause while I
Okay.
finish up grad school.
Okay.
But if someone is also still interested, you can still go to that same Instagram account, and I am happy to also make them for you as well.
Cool. That's awesome. That's amazing. Well, I think we've covered a lot of ground today, don't you?
I think so.
That's great though. I love it. I'm just glad we finally got to chat and for you to kind of talk about what you do and how you do what you do. It's important. I think that there's a lot more psychics and mediums in the area than
Oh, I think you got muted. I can't hear you. No. 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 I think it's like, I don't know. It just says you're muted. That's all it says.
How about now? Can you hear me now?
Yes. Yes.
Okay, I'll put that out. Good Lord. That's just technical fun. We just love that stuff. Gosh. Anyway, what are you looking into for the future as far as the paranormal? Is there anything you're working on? Do you have any projects that you're doing right now or stuff that you're hoping to do this next year or the year after? What's your goals? What are you looking at?
I'm not quite sure. I do know I want to check out the photography for sure.
Yeah.
I know I want to start doing more either paranormal investigations or at least investigations that I can utilize my mediumship a lot more. Um, I've noticed that mediumship is a huge practice related to like releasing, letting go, but also control specifically. And those are your main themes throughout my life that I've like struggled with. Because they go hand in hand and they love to like pull on each other. And I think that if I start actively using this a lot more and opening a lot more of those roads and like connections, I might also be able to individually kind of learn how to be like, okay, I don't need to be in control over all of these things. I can practice letting go a lot more.
Nice. No, that sounds great. It definitely sounds like moving forward and definitely helping you to get some other stuff accomplished. That's great. That is awesome. Well, hang on for just a second. I want to say thank you to everyone that's joined us today and that's been here for this wonderful visit with Sage that's long overdue. If you would please, as my friend Jay likes to remind me, please hit the like button if you're on YouTube watching this. And please subscribe. It helps me to get these episodes out to more people that are interested. And it only takes a second. So please at least just hit the like button. It makes a big difference. And this is Holly saying thank you so much. And Sage, thanks for stopping in and seeing us. And we'll see you again next time.
Thank you.